Assalamu alaikum students. Today we are starting another chapter related to the history of Pakistan from your class 7th social studies book. This is your chapter number 16, The Road to Independence. Dear students, there are some important points which you need to remember always before starting your lecture. Please always keep your book open in front of you before starting the lecture. It will be very beneficial for you to comprehend the topic. During reading the chapter, always keep the pencil in your hand and underline the important information given. You are requested that after the completion of the lecture, attempt book exercise questions given at the end of the chapter on your subject copies. It will help you to check your understanding of the topic. So let's start with our today's chapter, which is about Road to Independence. The First World War took place from 1914 to 18. Indian troops played a large part in the fighting, especially in Mesopotamia, present day Iraq, where the Muslim soldiers were fighting against the fellow Muslim Turks. Indian soldiers, including Muslims, suffered terrible casualties and very brutal treatment at the hands of the Turkish army. To reward them, the British Prime Minister Lloyd George promised India full self-government after the war, but he didn't say when. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, now the leading Muslim figure and already the member of the Indian Legislative Council, joined the Muslim League in 1913. He became its president 3 years later. He was a strong supporter of a united subcontinent and tried to get the Indian National Congress and Muslim League to work together towards this end. At Lucknow in 1916, he reached an agreement with the Congress to cooperate with separate electorates of Muslim and Hindus in all future governments of a united India. At this time, Mr. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who was to dominate Indian politics until partition, came to lead the Hindus. So, dear students, we will discuss the next topic, which is about the Montagu Chelmsford reforms. The reforms of 1921, as they were known, were the third major step towards independence. They proposed the following measures. Number 1, a central assembly was to be set up for India. The assembly could make laws, but the viceroy could, under certain circumstances, veto them. All provinces would have mainly elected assemblies to run health, local government, agriculture, education and transport, defense, foreign affairs, police, and the budget were still to be the responsibility of a viceroy and his council. There were to be 2 or 3 Indian members of the viceroy's close inner cabinet. The Congress rejected this proposal and the future battle lines seemed to be drawn up. On the Congress side were Gandhi, Nehru and Tilak, and on the Muslim side Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Sir Allama Iqbal. Mr. Jinnah still hoped for the two sides to work together. But the Congress rejected this, wanting compete more power for the Hindus. So in this response of Congress, Qaid-e-Azam forwarded his 14 points. At a meeting of the Muslim League in 1929, Muhammad Ali Jinnah said there were 14 points which were essential for Muslims in any future government of India. Among these important points were the following. Number 1, the government of India must be a federal one. Number 2, there must be separate electoral rolls for minorities, and Muslims must have at least one third of the seats in the Central Assembly. Number 3, there must be freedom of religion, education, language, customs for everyone. Muslims and other minorities must have a fair share of senior offices in both central and provincial governments. Mr. Jinnah made suggestions for new boundaries of provinces to fit more closely with the main religious areas. As you can see, he was still determined to keep the whole of India united when it obtained independence. On the other hand, in 1930s, Sir Allama Muhammad Iqbal at the Muslim League's conference at Allahabad hinted strongly that a separate Muslim state was a possibility. The boundaries he suggested for the vogue idea of an Islamic state were roughly similar to those of present day Pakistan. So, the roundtable conferences were arranged in London. The British government organized roundtable conferences in London from 1930 to 1932. To try to sort matters out, at first Mr. Gandhi didn't attend, but Mr. Jinnah did and stated the case for the Muslim people. At the second conference in 1932, Mr. Gandhi appeared and merrily repeated his demand for total Hindu majority rule. The third conference did take place, but it met with no success as one of the leaders attended. In 1932, the British government issued the Communal Award, which said that Muslims would have one third of the seats on any central legislative assembly and a percentage of the seats on provincial assemblies according to the proportion of the Muslims in the population. The Hindus were furious at that seemed a very moderate and fair decision and rejected the proposals out of hand. There were riots and violence all over the subcontinent, and Gandhi vowed to starve himself to death until the award was changed. If he had done so, there would have been revolution in India with no doubt hundreds of thousands of Muslims slaughtered. The Government of India Act 1935, as the parties continued to quarrel with neither side giving way, Britain decided to bring in its solution, which would be the basis of independence for India. This was the Government of India Act, which was passed in 1935. It stated the following points. Number 1, India should become a self governing dominion as soon as possible. Number 2, it should have a federal system. Number 3, there would be 11 provinces with Sindh, Bombay, Orissa being separate provinces. Number 4, ministers in the Viceroy's cabinet, the real powerhouse of government, would be responsible to mainly elected Central Legislative Assembly. Number 5, except for defense and foreign affairs, everything would be in the hands of the provincial assemblies. Number 6. Full dominion status with all powers in the hands of the people of the subcontinent would come in the near future. This solution pleased no one. The Muslims believed quite rightly that they would always be in a minority. There were the inevitable disturbances, riots, violences, agitations against the government. By the end of the chapter number 16, you all will be able to understand the importance of the main historical events from 1914 till 1935 in the creation of Pakistan. So, students, read this chapter and try to understand all the points correctly. Allah Hafiz.